This year's Crafoord Prize is awarded for discoveries concerning an absolutely fundamental mechanism within our immune system. The normal function of our immune system is to defend us against threats from the external world, like bacteria, viruses, parasites. But this defense system can become overambitious. We usually describe it with military metaphors. It has a frontline defense, it has intelligence, it has missiles, etc. And when the system becomes overambitious, it causes collateral damage. You can get destruction of normal tissues, and you can even get targeting of healthy normal cells. And when that happens, we have a problem because we have autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, multiple sclerosis.
We are today limited in how to treat the patients, and this is a new area that may develop. You need new treatments, you need targeted treatments for specific patients, and all patients are not the same.
The beauty of this prize is not only the fundamental nature of the discovery, it's also a very interesting and stimulating story from the point of view of history and philosophy of science. Now, the idea that there was such a thing as regulatory T cells that could dampen immune responses, that idea was around in the 70s and early 80s. But for different reasons it fell into disrepute. And nobody believed in it. But one of our laureates, Sakaguchi, was very persistent, and he continued his research around these cells. And the story is about him and two other men, 3 men and 3 mice, really. And Sakaguchi, he worked with mice where he operated them and took away the thymus, an organ situated here above the heart. And he looked at what happened then. And then they developed a disease. And to cut the long story short, he concluded that there must be T cells developing in the thymus, hence T for thymus. And these cells had the capacity to dampen this autoimmune disease. A few years later, in 1995, he described that he could isolate and transfer to mice this very specific population. And he described the population in a way that other researchers could reproduce the results in their laboratories. And now the field started to grow. In a completely different corner of the world, Sakaguchi was in Japan. Ramsdell, working in the United States, was interested in a mouse called scurfy. It's a mouse with an inherited disease caused by one single gene. And he wanted to know what that gene was doing. And the mice, like the mice that Sakaguchi had worked with, developed autoimmune manifestations, attack on the normal tissues and cells. And after long work, Ramsdell managed to isolate the gene, and together with pediatric colleagues, he showed that the same gene was responsible for a syndrome, a very severe syndrome in small children, which develop autoimmune disease. So now he had identified one gene causing autoimmunity. But the two lines of research had not yet converged. And this was going to happen 2 years later, in 2003, when Alexander Rudensky showed that if you took the gene discovered by Ramsdell and you took away that gene, you deleted it from mice, in so-called knockout mice, then what happened was that they developed an autoimmune disease, and the reason for that was that they lacked these regulatory T cells discovered by Sakaguchi. So now these 3 discoveries by these 3 men with these 3 mice completely transformed the world of immunology. Now everybody understood that we are going to observe and analyze these regulatory T cells, because then we can learn important things about how autoimmune disease like arthritis develops.
So this is a new way to develop treatments, I think, for a subpopulation of patients with rheumatic conditions or autoinflammatory conditions. It feels very promising that there are new ways to look upon the immune system to develop new treatment strategies, because all patients are not the same, and some patients may respond to this type of treatment and others respond to other types.